horror writer Sutter Kane, a harmless pop phenomenon, or a deadly mad prophet of the printed page?
All right. Up next is 1994's In the Mouth of Madness by director John Carpenter.
Yep.
I think we all know John Carpenter. I hope you know who John Carpenter is, but
the guy did The Thing.
He
also,
is
They Live.
The Thing, They Live. This movie, In the Mouth of Madness, is apparently part of this meta trilogy that he does over the decade and a half. It's called the Apocalypse Trilogy. And 1982's The Thing, 1987's Prince of Darkness, and then the third and final installment is In the Mouth of Madness, where all three movies deal with the end of the world, eschatology, apocalypse, you name it, we're ending the world.
Yeah, the concept essentially in all three movies is a thing that could potentially bring about the apocalypse.
Right.
The alien from The Thing, if that manages to get out of Antarctica and get rescued and thawed out, there's probably no stopping it in a major city where it can just hide too easily. Prince of Darkness, I've never seen, but if I recall, it is about Satan being in a bottle or something. And then In the Mouth of Madness is what if Stephen King had superpowers? I think is what so yeah, we should say In the Mouth of Madness is very much inspired by no one story in particular, and also is probably more inspired by Stephen King than it is inspired by H.P. Lovecraft, and it's kind of just this very odd amalgam of different Stephen King with a little bit of Lovecraft sprinkled in just because of Lovecraft's influence on Stephen King, really.
Okay, so starting out at the Mountains of Madness is the inspiration for the name.
Right.
And that story, I feel like, has more in common with The Thing.
Yes, it does.
Because it deals with going to the Antarctica and discovering Cthulhu and...
Yeah, it's a idea of what's buried beneath the ice of Antarctica.
Right.
Which is actually, as you said, very similar to The Thing, more so than this book, which I guess is a little like Innsmouth horror, but not really.
Well, okay, so the opening scene is very Lovecraftian. They are at Arkham's asylum.
Yeah, but it's just an asylum in Arkham. It's not Arkham Asylum from Batman. It's they're in Arkham at an asylum.
And John Trent, the main character played by Sam Neill, is going mad, and he's put in the classic
straitjacket, padded room. Let me tell you my story of how I got here.
Right. And so the entire film is framed in this way that he's telling the whole story of why I went mad, and it can't be that crazy. I lived it, and it kind of bookends both sides.
Right. Yeah, so Sam Neill, he's a investigator who mainly contracts to insurance companies. Whoever's insuring with a publisher is Sutter Kane, which, has the same initials as Stephen King. Sutter Kane, this fictional horror writer, has gone missing. We need him to write his last book that he promised. His books are wildly popular, and people go crazy when they read them. And he's like, that sounds like just marketing mumbo-jumbo by the publisher, but whatever, sure, I'll investigate. He, notices, essentially, if you put all the covers of Sutter Kane's books together, it forms a map of New Hampshire and marks a particular spot in the middle of New Hampshire that is the fictional setting of Sutter Kane's stories.
Hobbs End.
Yeah, it's basically the Arkham. They drive out there. They see a bunch of shit that is in the stories, finally meeting Sutter Kane himself, who is locked away in this spooky church, typing away on his typewriter. And what seems to be happening is they're literally inside of a Sutter Kane story as he's writing it, and they are mere characters in his work. And Sutter Kane himself has this, I mean, I think he literally calls himself God on several occasions. This belief in his own dictatorial power over this world, and this belief that he is essentially channeling the Old Ones, which would be a direct reference to Cthulhu mythology of Lovecraft. And through his books, he is manifesting the Old Ones into our world, and they will eventually take over the world, is basically what's going on. Sam Neill then becomes but a mere character. This Sutter Kane story is made to deliver the novel back to the publisher so it can be published. He tries to destroy it, but instead he just kind of wakes up like weeks later and finds out, oh no, we got the story weeks ago, getting optioned into movies. He goes outside, there's fucking riots everywhere, everyone's going crazy from the stories. He ends up killing someone, finds himself locked away in a mental asylum where he is now telling this story.
And the film ends with the asylum in Arkham emptying out and him just walking out.
Yeah, he walks out, the world's basically ending. There's
overrun.
Yeah, there's alleged monsters as well as humans who have gone insane, mass unexplained suicides. He goes to a movie theater, watches the film version of the book In the Mouth of Madness, where he sees himself in the film as a character in the story and kind of laughs and credits roll. And also John Carpenter basically covers like Enter Sandman, but changes the notes just enough.
We're going to use that as the outro music.
Yeah. Notable thing about John Carpenter is he scores all his own movies, and in this one, man, was he quote-unquote inspired by Metallica.
Yeah, well, he tried to get the song Enter Sandman, but couldn't get the rights, so he composed his own theme, in quotations, with the help of a composer and the guitarist from the Kinks, Dave Davies. Jim Lang is the composer who scored Hey Arnold.
Yeah, fun. Anyway, notable connection this movie has to Reanimator is Reanimator just straight up stole their theme from fucking Hitchcock's Psycho, which I joked about earlier, but it's exactly the same music from Psycho, and I don't know, I can't imagine they paid anyone for that.
So yeah, stick around to the end of the episode so you can hear the beautiful Dave Davies, Jim Lang, and John Carpenter inspired by Metallica. But first, we're gonna do a little bit of the movie.
Starts the chain. Helps you see. You are what I want. Go now. I can't hold them back any longer.
Alright, so that scene's toward the end.
Yeah, so I think what's notable about this is the weird hyper-reality that it's working under. Because there's not ever really a clarifying delineation between reality and the writing. It's not like it's established that Sutter Kane writes things and they appear in the real world, or that all of this is taking place in a Sutter Kane story. It's never very clear where the story ends, reality begins, and like what that exact relationship is. And it's this very, I think, similar to what we were talking about with Anubis Gate, this kind of self-contained cyclic idea.
Yeah, there is an Ouroboros of a postmodern kind of meta-analysis or meta-textual attempt to have a writer be within it who's writing the movie that exists within the context of this movie, which you can watch, and that this movie is written by a writer, presumably.
Yeah, it's almost like a slightly dumbed down David Lynch, I think.
Yeah, there's certainly, yeah, and we'll get to that in a future episode about David Lynch, but it doesn't have the time travel in Anubis Gate, but it certainly has, like, Neil's character is in this ontological uncertainty.
Yeah.
And even in that clip, he goes, I know I'm not fictional. I know I'm not fictional. And in the last scene when he's in the theater, which is very Lynchian to go to a theater and see something and have a revelation.
Particularly watch earlier clips from the movie we all watch, but now being projected on the
Or a
movie screen.
montage. Or a montage of clips.
It kind of just ends with him going nuts while watching himself on the movie screen angrily, defiantly declare his own existence. But the fact that he's watching that in the third person kind of undermines that declaration. Is the conceit of the movie that everything you've seen actually was this novel this dude was writing?
Yeah.
Or is it existent somehow on top of the real or the reality of the real world, but it kind of slips into this novel? You know, is Sutter Kane actually a threat to the world, or are you just watching a Sutter Kane novel and the things that take place in the novel? And I think that is left somewhat ambiguous.
Unresolved, yeah.
Yeah. You know, does the top fall at the end of Inception? But, like, almost better than that, because both levels of reality are so enmeshed together that it just leaves the whole thing open.